What does a Chinese Toyota Prado look like, and why is it interesting for us in Australia and elsewhere in the world where we don't actually have Haval H9 model for sale? Well, my friends, firstly, because we might get Haval H9 at some point, and secondly, because it's a known fact that the 4x4 vehicle frame, transmission, transfer case, oil filter, and a lot of other elements in H9 are exactly the same as in GWM Cannon Ute that I'm interested in, and I know so are many of you. So if nothing else, this is why you should keep watching and give this video a like if you find this insightful. I'm translating a 2-year-old video actually from Klubniy Servis channel here, where we're looking at Haval H9 2021 model. The original video had 4.4 million views in those 2 years. Yep, 4.4 million. That tells you just how popular the car was in Russia back then and how much interest it had. This is going to be a 2-part video, just like I did with the disassembly of Toyota Land Cruiser 300 translation. I don't want to rush this or to make the video really long, as YouTube Analytics tells me that not many of you actually watch my full-length videos till the end, as the society is plagued by TikTok and 1-minute Instagram reels. I know, I don't judge, but I hope you get why I don't want to overinvest my time here either. So, we will start today by looking at the frame of the vehicle, suspension, and the underbelly of the main body of Haval H9, draw some early conclusions, and come back for part 2, where Ilya will resume his story, talking about the engine and the rest of the vehicle. Cool? So, get ready everyone, because Ilya is on fire here, at least at the beginning, and don't forget that initially his service center in Moscow was specializing in Toyota vehicles, which obviously didn't prevent him from successfully disassembling and very honestly reviewing a lot of other cars of other manufacturers, including the glorious GWM Tank 300 that he liked a lot, I'd like to remind you. But here, let's set expectations that in this 2-year-old video, he is rather scathing. You have been warned, my friends. He starts by mocking the saying, "Oh, why would you pay extra for Japanese cars when you can buy a cheaper Chinese one?" I've never said it myself, by the way, but I have to translate honestly here. That's what he said. And he kind of rides in on a horse, showing us the corrosion on the side steps of this vehicle, also saying that this Haval H9 apparently has only 600 kilometers on the clock, and it remains your guess and mine how bad really the road conditions in Russia were where this car was driving or was parked before actually arriving for filming purposes at Klubniy Servis Moscow. But I will admit that having corrosion this early, this bad, can't be excused under any conditions. There is no excuses for this. When we look at this car, we can see that it's practically a 1-to-1 copy and replica of Toyota Prado, truly, with lots of extra similarities, such as how the tailgate is opening and some other smaller kind of elements. But Ilya here just can't wait to lift the car and show us its underbelly, what it looks like after these 600 kilometers on the road, starting with how the spare is fitted under the boot. Again, very similar to Prado. Further down we see a solid one piece of the rear axle, spring-based rear suspension, and electronic powered electric kind of handbrake controls on the wheel fittings. As he moves further towards the center of the lifted H9 here, Ilya briefly points out the part that he refers to as stabilizer that's apparently fitted on the 4x4 heavy vehicle frames to allow for easier steering on the road. He is showing us the exhaust pipe, where some pipes, apparently some parts of these pipes are stainless steel and they are not rusting, but then there are some elements that are probably just normal steel or some kind of alloy that is not immune to corrosion either, just like the side steps that he has shown us at the very beginning of this video. GWM suggests that H9, Haval H9 is a heavy off-roader on a solid frame. So we are shown here more corrosion, and here there is a plastic fuel tank with a very thin layer of protection, which doesn't kind of inspire any particular confidence. Here we also see the fuel filters that are fitted under the frame. If you take a look at how low they're hanging, I have to go off script here and say that it's very similar to how the fuel filter sits on GWM Cannon Ute. Yep, hanging down below the main carrying bars of the frame, not very protected, I would say very exposed, which makes me a little bit worried as a potential owner of a GWM Cannon Ute. But let's return to HAVAL H9 here. Needless to say, Ilya is not impressed with this placement. HAVAL H9, same as GWM Cannon Ute, uses the renowned transfer case for higher and lower gear ratios by Borg Warner, which apparently is a very good thing, and he will revisit this element in the second part of the video where we talk about the engine and the other elements that work together with it. Finally, we are looking at the front suspension and more elements that show some signs of corrosion. We are seeing here the two A-shaped wishbone suspension units with springs, done pretty well apparently according to Ilya, but he also can't help himself but to point out that if you were looking for some replacement parts from the other vehicles, such as let's say Toyota, to replace certain broken parts here, you know, in the conditions of servicing and whatnot, you wouldn't be able to do that. Looking at the frontal panel, disassembled frontal panel of HAVAL H9, we can see more Toyota-inspired design decisions. Marked bolts, which apparently are just quality control that they're using in a local factory. Reinforcement bar of the frontal bumper made of a really kind of solid alloy here, so he kind of credits that. And there is not much corrosion that we're seeing here, but we're also hearing that beyond that front bumper reinforcement bar, there is no proper protection from any frontal collisions anywhere else here. Please keep in mind that while the quality of the materials and design of this H9 would be the same everywhere in the world, Ilya here points out that these Havals, they actually are assembled in Russia, in Tula, Russia. There is a city in Russia. And the assembly line is being kind of criticized here a little bit, and I think that's a local assembly line having nothing to do with us. Where the protective spray under the wheel arches is kind of inconsistent a little bit. It's put on, but it's inconsistent. And there are some other smaller elements of this assembly that he's criticizing, but I'm skipping them here for a reason, as it's of less importance to any of us outside of Russia. Wheels on H9 are 18-inch alloy wheels with 6 bolts, strangely balanced by having those additional kind of pegs, which is a fairly lengthy lineup of those pegs. He says there is like 30 centimeters of it. I don't know what to call them, which looked weird to Ilya, considering that the car is pretty much brand new, so why would they need to balance the wheels like that? Now when we open the tailgate first and then the rear door he's showing to us, we can see these fitted sort of rubber insulation elements that are covering water draining holes in the tailgate and in the doors. And Ilyas kind of suggests that while everything is new and while everything is sitting nicely and neatly, it all should be good as intended, but in a few months and years when it all gets a bit dirty and kind of moves a little bit around, you might have problems. I take it with drainage of the water and therefore possibly facilitating more corrosion. So look, so far even he says, look, it's not a very good picture, but, and I'm sure you would agree, listening to Ilya up to this point, I was quite disappointed, as my primary interest was in structural similarities and quality kind of the materials and metal to GWM Cannon Ute. But let's hold off in terms of our judgment or despair, because they are about to be lifting the body off the frame of the vehicle, as they always do after doing this initial inspection and comments, and then we will also see a lot more about this in the second part of the vehicle. We're here sort of about to wrap up this part number 1 by looking at one of the leading mechanics of Klubniy Servis Moscow as they are lifting the body off the frame and kind of starting to look at the rest of this. So as Ilya starts looking at the bottom of this vehicle, when it's lifted off the frame, he says that he can see here some factory insulation, and the good thing to see is that some of these pipes are also covered by the rubber outer lining, which is a very, very good thing, kind of suggests more protection of those pipes and longevity, obviously, of this module. He points out that there are rather strong thresholds here on the sides, strong bolts that are coming from the top, with some of the rubber patches of sound insulation as well, that are factory patches that are better than nothing. Once again, Илья is following the lines of where the welding seams are and points out that some of them are covered, kind of insulated further with special material, while others are not, which is perplexing, and it's your guess and mine if it's just, once again, due to it being assembled in Russia, or is it just the general quality control of GWM. And this is where we will wrap up this video. I know it went very quickly, but it's deliberate, before even the strongest of you fall asleep or need to go for a smoke. So let's regroup later for part number 2, where we will keep talking about this Chinese Toyota Prado known as HAVAL H9 that we unfortunately don't have here in Australia, as I hope that maybe one day we will get this model, because even with all this criticism, with all of this stuff that we're seeing here, I actually think that there would be a massive market for this vehicle in Australia. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree. I'm pretty sure there would be. Yeah. I hope you found this insightful and kind of took out of it at least some useful information that I think should be transferable to at least GWM Cannon Ute. So I thank you as always very much for watching. Please like the video before you leave, if you liked it, of course, and I will talk to you next time. Subscribe for more.